Richard is also with us. Richard, you are listening to Bush Telly. You're on RN and Radio Australia, also podcastable anytime you like. Cameron Wilson with you. Well, when the Faculty of Veterinary Science at the University of Melbourne was planning its milestone celebrations this year, marking 50 years since the school reopened, it shied away from the more obvious. Rather than pay tribute to the school's academic leaders and achievers, an art exhibition was created. The idea, to use the artistic skills of vets to explore our relationship with animals. Now, the results are both astonishing and quite thought-provoking. Purnima is the curator of the exhibition. It's called The Artful World of Animals, and she joins me now. Purnima, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Well, what themes does this exhibition explore?
It explores a number of themes. I mean, there's a dichotomy between a number of issues which is clearly presented in the exhibition. It explores, the world from an animal's perspective, what the world looks like through their eyes, and what kind of interactions exist between human beings and animals. They even explore the impact of human beings on the animal world, both detrimental and positive. What sentiments are stirred between animals and towards animals. I mean, there are a large number of thought-provoking themes.
Yeah, some emotive themes as well, and themes that many people have an opinion on. Can you describe some of the works, how they actually explore these themes?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of the artists who explore the controversial nature of zoological institutions. Tristan Lee, for example, one of the artists, he explores the imagery of barriers and boundaries through the imagery of barriers in zoological institutions, and it really shies away from portraying zoos as the innocent realm of childhood retreats, and instead it questions whether we as sentient beings have the right to confine other sentient beings behind bars.
Is this one of your particular favourites, this piece?
This piece?
Yeah.
I'm the curator.
You're not allowed to say that.
I'm not allowed to say that at all.
All right, tell me about the contributors. Is it all vets that are the contributors?
71% of the artists are in the veterinary industry, which is very, very remarkable. I mean, who would have thought that veterinarians are artists? I mean, it was a shocking revelation for myself and people on the committee. You wouldn't guess that they're scientists or animal doctors. But, veterinarians and animal scientists, they are charged with being protectors and custodians of the animal species, and they care for their health, welfare and well-being. So this is clearly translated into the art. They question, so many issues within their art through different styles and artistic mediums.
Now, we've got one of the contributors with us. Deborah Story is a vet who works in international aid, and she's taken part in this exhibition, which is also a competition. Deborah, thank you for joining us on Bush Telegraph.
Thanks, Cameron.
What's your work? Explain to me what's in the exhibition.
I've entered 2 photographs in the exhibition, which are both of donkeys and boys collecting water. They're taken in rural Afghanistan and are supposed to represent the essentials of life from a rural Afghan perspective, where water, bread and peace are essential, but so are donkeys, because for most rural families you simply can't live without one.
So you took these in Afghanistan. What were you doing there?
I was there as an international development volunteer seconded by an agency here called TIR Australia, and working with a rural development program. So I was very fortunate to live in a rural village and the regional capital part of the time for about 6 years, which learnt me to see our relationships to animals quite differently, and even problematise the focus we have on animals as pets in our society. I mean, I love animals and I think that pets add a lot to our lives, but sometimes the way we treat them is not healthy for them or for the world that we live in.
So how is that treatment of animals different in Afghanistan? What did you witness?
Well, for the rural people, and Afghans aren't all the same, and there's particularly big divides between the urban and the rural worlds, and also between the wealthier and educated people and those who haven't had those opportunities. And so living with the rural people, if I just talk about them, they're extremely kind to their animals. They depend on them and they treat them well, but they don't make them pets, they don't call them names, and they don't sentimentalise them at all. So the anthropomorphic aspects that we have in our relationships to animals mostly aren't there. But it doesn't mean that the animals aren't well cared for or appreciated or treated kindly. So even in rural villages, there was very little tolerance to any cruelty to animals at all. You'd have lots of people calling others to account if a boy, you know how boys can often get out of hand sometimes when they're in their early adolescence. They'd be come down on from all sides if they treated an animal badly.
So clearly your work in international aid and work in Afghanistan has shaped your views to some extent. Has taking part in this exhibition changed those views as well?
Maybe not so much. I had a look around it yesterday and was quite impressed by the range of work, and also discovering some of my friends and former colleagues whom I never knew were artists, and there was their work. So
You've all got this secret, Deborah.
Yeah, and particularly those who were painters. I mean, I took photographs, but I really admire people who can paint in a way that conveys the spirit of the animal, and particularly of the freedom in movement that they can have.
Does the fact you're a vet, does that have much influence on your photographs?
I don't know. It's certainly, my veterinary training here at Melbourne University was hugely important for my development work. My ability to listen and see the big picture and have a problem-based approach to complex problems. But I'm not sure if it affects how it took photographs. Except that those photographs were taken with an old-fashioned SLR where everything was manual.
With film?
With film,
yeah.
Yep. And they're a few years old, so it's before digital was common. And I think my veterinary training actually gave me the physics to know how to use cameras. So that's a kind of incidental thing.
Now, I know we have a copy of that picture, which I think we're okay to put up on our website. So, yeah, I'm getting the nod there. So we'll do that this afternoon so people can see exactly the picture you're talking about there, Deborah. I know you're flat out and you're working, so Deborah, thank you. I'll let you go, but thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thanks, Cam.
Deborah Story, who's a vet, works in international aid and has taken part in this exhibition, which is also a competition running at Melbourne University, which is exploring our relationship with animals. The curator is Purnima Runglabat. Now, Purnima,
yes.
That's a really interesting story, quite in-depth
Absolutely, yeah.
piece as well. How did this actually come about? How did it eventuate that you thought an exhibition like this was a way to mark a milestone year for the school?
I mean, well, the idea actually came from Professor Bruce Parry, who works at the Faculty of Veterinary Science. He's the Associate Dean of External Relations, and he was inspired by a series of photographs taken by Professor Charles Douglas Blood, who was the former Dean of the faculty. And
a leader, I think, in large animal veterinary science in the early days. Books published about cattle care. And
he was a dean in 1962, and he published a collection of photographs of a range of bird species. And these were very popular, and we have some displayed in the exhibition as well as a testimony to him. Unfortunately, he passed away in June this year, aged 93. But it's lovely to have his photographs in the exhibition, which provides great, context into the show and demonstrates close ties with the veterinary profession. So really, Bruce was inspired by his photographs and thought, let's put out a call to artists and vets and see how many actually are artists, how many vets are artists, and surprisingly, a lot are.
Yeah, as we've just heard from Deborah. Yeah. Can you describe Professor Blood's photography for me?
Yeah, so we have a photograph in the exhibition of an owl. We have fairy wrens. They're close-ups of birds, different bird species, and they're very enigmatic. They're taken in the Western Treatment Plant at Werribee. So he took a lot of photographs of mostly migratory birds, and some of these are represented in the show. Because
it's quite a celebrated destination for bird watchers, the treatment plant there.
Absolutely,
isn't it? Yeah. All right, so this is on at the moment in Melbourne. Is there any plans to take it outside of Melbourne, tour it at all?
that would be lovely and adventurous. I mean, it has such a wide appeal to different audiences, from young, school children to adults and people from different disciplines who come together and spark dialogue and different opinions. I mean, art in all its representative forms has the capability to do that. So, I mean, we haven't had talk of that, but that would be a great vision, and hopefully it could be something that's annual.
So it's a competition as well. What's the prize on offer? Is it cash prize?
We have small cash prizes in different categories. So artists were invited to submit a maximum of 3 works in different categories. So the exhibition has, painting, drawing, comics, photography, textiles. So there'll be first and second prizes in each of these categories of medium.
Okay, and that's announced on Saturday, I think,
This Saturday, yes, 3 to 5 p.m.
Okay, and the exhibition runs until the 7th of October, and it's on at University Hall at Melbourne Uni?
Yes, University Hall.
We'll make sure there's details for that up on our website, along with some of the artworks, the photography that you will see up on our website later this afternoon. Thank you for coming in. Really interesting idea, Purnima. Nice talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Purnima Runglabat, who's the curator of this exhibition, and it's called The Artful World of Animals. As I said, you can check out some of those pictures on our website later this afternoon, and if you're in Melbourne, you can get along to the exhibition yourself and explore some of these thought-provoking images. Now, that'll do us for Bush Tally for today. Tomorrow, we've got lots on the program tomorrow. Floods, fire, cyclones, they can mean hard times for rural communities that are surviving, particularly on the tourist dollar, but there are some
details.